It took the Vatican 359 years to admit that the judges who condemned Galileo Galilei were wrong, and the book that condemned him carried the Church's own license, stamped in the front. This is how the most famous scientist alive was made to kneel and curse his own discovery. In 1610, a Florentine mathematician pointed a homemade telescope at the night sky. He saw mountains on the moon. He saw 4 small moons circling Jupiter in a line. He saw Venus showing phases like our own moon. The old Earth-centered model could not explain any of it. The Copernican idea that the sun stands still and the Earth moves suddenly looked real. Galileo became famous across Europe almost overnight. The Church noticed. In February 1616, the Holy Office's experts declared the fixed sun foolish and absurd in philosophy and formally heretical. Cardinal Robert Bellarmine, the Church's leading theologian, warned Galileo privately to abandon the opinion. Copernicus's book was suspended until corrected, but Galileo himself was not tried, not punished, and not made to abjure. At his request, Bellarmine handed him a signed certificate saying exactly that. Yet an unsigned memo sat in the Inquisition's file, recording a far stricter order, never to hold, teach, or defend the idea in any way whatsoever. Galileo never signed it. Historians still argue about that piece of paper. Then his luck seemed to turn golden. In 1623, Maffeo Barberini became Pope Urban VIII. Barberini was an old friend who admired Galileo and had even written a poem in his honor. He encouraged him to write about the rival world systems, so long as he treated the Earth's motion as a hypothesis. Galileo went home and wrote a masterpiece. The dialogue concerning the 2 chief world systems appeared in 1632, licensed by church censors in Rome and Florence. But the book read as a defense of Copernicanism, and the Pope's favorite argument was placed in the mouth of a character named Simplicio, the simpleton. The Pope believed the simpleton was him. Within months, sales were halted, the old unsigned memo was found in the file, and Galileo, 68 and ill, was summoned to Rome. The trial of 1633 was never about astronomy. It was about paperwork. The prosecution rested on the unsigned memo. Galileo answered with Bellarmine's signed certificate. Behind the scenes, the commissary brokered a quiet deal. Galileo would confess to vanity, and the case would close gently. The sentence was harsher than the deal implied. On June 21st, he was threatened with torture in the standard formula. It was never used, and almost certainly never intended. On June 22nd, 1633, in the convent of Santa Maria sopra Minerva, Galileo was declared vehemently suspected of heresy. Kneeling in the white shirt of a penitent, he read the words aloud. He abjured, cursed, and detested the claim that the earth moves. Legend says he muttered, and yet it moves. There is no evidence he ever did. And 3 of his 10 judges, including the Pope's own nephew, refused to sign the sentence. No one recorded exactly why. There was no dungeon. His prison became house arrest, served in comfort, and finally at his own villa in Arcetri, above Florence. There his daughter died. There he went blind. And there he wrote the Discourses on 2 New Sciences, the book that founded modern physics, smuggled out and printed in Protestant Holland. He died in 1642, still under arrest. His dialogue stayed on the Index of Forbidden Books until 1835, and not until October 31st, 1992, did Pope John Paul II formally acknowledge that Galileo's judges had erred. 359 years after an old man knelt and cursed the truth. This has been under oath.